There was a sweet shop across the street from the high school that I had graduated from. And there was a young lady who practically wrote the song hollering to a guy that my boyfriend's back and you're going to be in trouble because you've been saying things about me.
We wrote this narration.
You went away and he went away and you hung around and bothered me every night. And when I wouldn't go out with you, you said things that weren't very nice.
You went away and you hung around and bothered me every night. And when I wouldn't go out with you, you said things that weren't very nice. My boyfriend's back and you're gonna be in trouble. Hey la, my boyfriend is back and he's coming, better cut out all the dough. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. You've been spreading lies that I was untrue. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Look out now, 'cause he's coming after you. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Hey, he knows what you've been trying. Knows that you've been lying. He's been gone for such a long time. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Now he's back and things will be fine. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Gonna be sorry you were ever born. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Kind of big and awful strong. Hey la, my boyfriend is back. Hey, he knows I wasn't cheap. Now you're gonna get a beat. What made you think he believed all your lies? Oh, you're a big man now, but I'll cut you down to size. Oh, wait and see. My boyfriend's back, he's gonna save my reputation. Hey la, my boyfriend's back. How will you? I think I'm permanent vacation. Hey la, my boyfriend's back. Yeah, my boyfriend's back. Look out now, my boyfriend's back. When I can see him coming, so you better get him running over now. Yeah, my boyfriend's back now. I know he's coming after you because he knows I'm true now. Yeah.
Girl groups were making it big, so everybody became a girl group, and a writer wanted to write for the girl groups, and producers wanted to produce girl groups, and they were available. But one or two girl groups make it, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and then there were 24,000 girl groups, and a sound is created. The girl groups are in.
I knew I was going to sing. I just had no realms, nothing about it. I knew I wanted to sing. And I wanted to sing rock and roll. I fell in love with the voice. And it was Frankie Lyman.
Why do fools fall in love? Why do birds sing so gay?
Frankie Lyman's voice to me was one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard in my life. And that's what I wanted to sing like, and that's what I wanted to sound like. He was my admiration.
At a certain point, Frankie Lyman's record of Why Do Fools Fall in Love got popular. But when I heard it, and I heard that Frankie was only 13, and I think I was about 13 and a half, I said, wow, if he's doing that, we could certainly get on the radio, you know? Santel started, I think, in the early 50s. When we were all members of the Cherub Choir at St. Anthony of Padua School.
When Maybe came out, I said, I want to meet that lady. She has a voice on her.
Tendency to lean to all the songs that had some kind of heartbreak or some kind of sadness, and there was always a beauty in the sadness. about the kind of love that I didn't know. I loved my parents. Sitting on the bus, looking out of the window, and thinking about what I had to do tomorrow was absolute bliss, because I would be in another city, and that evening I would be doing something that I absolutely loved to do. Dressing up and getting on stage and singing.
It was very easy then. The times were very happy then.
In those days, they said it very plain and simple.
I would say very naive, very innocent, full of hope, full of fantasy, full of promise. There was a period of not only romanticism, of memories that were so vivid, of hooks and riffs and sing-along type of sounds. The key place in America or the world at the time was the Brill Building, and that was at 1619 Broadway.
The Brill Building was the most alive place you can imagine back then.
There were music publishers and managers of musical acts on every floor.
You would get off the elevator and you would hear pianos going, people singing.
Frequently in the Brill Building, writers would go, as they used to say, to peddle their song. Usually they'd try to get to the piano. Sometimes they would sing a cappella, sometimes they had a ukulele, and sometimes they'd pull out a clarinet and play a tune and say, would you like this one? And they'd go from door to door trying to sell it. And they'd start at the top because it's easier to walk down than to walk up.
We wrote the song, we took it to an artist, we rehearsed the artist, we'd pick an arranger. Mike would do a skeleton arrangement, we would go into the studio, the orchestrator would fill in the skeleton, we would record it, we would mix it, we would edit it, we would press it, we would put it out.
Nobody cared about money.
You were so happy just to be making records and like to be able to get paid the amount of money, whatever it was, to do something that you loved.
Just the thought of somebody paying me or paying us
Well, I think that's it.
to do something that we would have done for nothing.
The fact that you can make some sort of a living out of doing something you totally enjoy, that just comes out of your head.
Money was not the main thing. The most important thing was all these people were just loving us.
The money just kept rolling in, and the hits kept rolling in. And you walk away at 28 years of age with a $2 million check for you and your partner. It's very, very difficult to turn down.
What happened to us was like the American dream.
Everybody was working together. The writers were working with the producers, with the publishers, with the artists to make hits and to have a good time.
Carole King wrote a song called Will You Love Me Tomorrow, which is probably one of my all-time favorite songs.
Tonight you're mine, completely.
We brought the songs to the Shirelles, which effectively started Scepter Records. I mean, it was a real major hit. And effectively, I began to feel that we had the power to create record companies as well. Because the key to me as a publisher was always the song.
I guess if I had to pick who I really, really got off on the most, I'd say the Shirelles.
The Shirelles were our idols. I mean, those girls, they had hit after hit after hit.
and Jerry Gaffin had a babysitter by the name of Eva Boyd. She came in with a song that was a demo, and I took it home with me, and I said, this is absolutely incredible. I realized it wasn't even a question of greed. Why shouldn't I have my own record company? And I told Carol and Jerry that Jerry will be the producer of the record, and we put it out and we distribute it ourselves. It had the train sound, it had that cooking feel, and I figured it would be a new dance craze. We started our own record company called Stork Records, and it had a stork with a top hat on it, and underneath said, delivers the hits.
Redbird actually started because we needed a label to release records on. We had certain records, and there was no record company to release them, so we had to get them out.
Redbird Records was run by people that really knew music, and it was an extension of the family situation. Everybody worked together to make the label happen.
Ellie Greenwich, a very talented, effervescent, happy-go-lucky dame, very talented songwriter, who fell in love with Jeff Barry and married him. And they became one of the hottest writing teams at that time.
I think one of the reasons I started going out with him was that he was one of the first guys I ever dated where I could actually go to the piano and sing a note and I would hear a harmony. It was like, wow.
Gonna get married, going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. We really love you and we're gonna get married.
Chapel of Love. Who couldn't love Chapel of Love? Innocent, everybody wants to be in love and get married. It's one of the few records that songs I wrote, and when the record was made, I knew it would be a #1 record. What happened with Jeff and I just think that we had too much happen to us too fast, and I think the marriage stuff is because the music did so well. We just got so wrapped up in the music, we didn't take enough time to get to know one another.
The song in the background is one of my all-time favorites, called Chapel of Love, for which they got this gold record. They followed it up with People Say, for which they got this gold record, and then they followed that up with a song they're about to sing for you right now. Let's welcome them in a big shindig way, the fantastic Dixie Cups.
Looking just as good as he could be. And when he caught my eye, I knew I was a goner. You should have seen the way he looked at me. Well, I tell you, he
Exciters. You can hear for yourself. One of the best groups, one of the best girl singers, Brenda. Strong, powerful, feeling, streak. And the Vandellas were singing, or the Marvelettes, or the Supremes. Motown was getting down.
In 1963 at the BMI dinner, a gentleman tapped me on the shoulder and shook my hand and said, "Don, I want you to know I think you've done a tremendous job and your people are great, and I'm starting a little operation out of Detroit with some great writers and producers and record people." His name was Berry Gordy, and of course he's legendary today.
Berry Gordy, I would say, for us, was like a genius. so much about music, and he was a songwriter. And to work with, it was like going to school. It was like working with a professor, someone who really knew what he was talking about. If you were to sing a song, he would say, well, that song's not for you. Or do it this way and it'll work. And it normally worked. We had charm classes, and they brought in people who were the best in their field, like choreographer Charlie Atkins, who was just fabulous. And Barry was on top of all that. To as a Motown family, and that's really true. When I look back, I said, was it really that good? I would say that it really was that good. It really was the family.
When I say I'm in love, you best believe I'm in love, L-U-V.
The Shangri-Las. George Morton, who we later renamed Shadow Morton.
Because he would...
Very ghosty. He would ghost in and ghost out.
A shadow would suddenly appear as if from out of nowhere, and he'd say, all right, let's start.
He was making little radio playlets. They're like mini soap operas. And the first one I heard was a demo on Remember, Walking in the Sand. I thought that the demo had an eerie, charismatic feeling about it. He'd never made a record before. This was his first attempt. And so we went into the studio with him. But by and large, he produced those records. They're his productions, they're his dreams, they're what he hears in his head. They were Shadow Morton productions.
Oh no, oh no. Walking in the sand, walking hand in hand. The night was so exciting, smile was so inviting. Then he touched my cheek, with his fingertips. Softly, softly with me.
You know, you shouldn't look like that if you don't want to be kissed.
Strictly a sex attraction, wasn't it?
Are you serious?
Maybe we'd better just talk for a while.
Yeah, and keep talking.
We put Shadow together with Jeff and Ellie because Jeff and Ellie had a lot more experience in structuring and also in studio work.
I had known Shadow Morton when I was 14 years old. He's from Hicksville, Long Island, and I'm from Levittown. And we met through someone who owned a record store out in Hicksville. And we didn't keep in touch for many, many years. And when I started making it, he had called and he reintroduced himself. And I remember that I had known him years before, and he said he had a group called the Shangri-Las. The Shangri-Las were made up of Mary, the one that most people remember with the long hair, and two twins, Mary Ann and Margie, and they came from Queens, and they were the big discovery of Shadow Morton.
Guff, yeah, right here he's bad. He's good bad, but he's not evil. Tell me more, tell me more. Big bucket wedding, tell me more. The matches eye, tell me more. Dirty fingernail, tell me more. Oh boy, would have cried. High heavy plan, high button shoes. He's always looking like he got the blues. And when I see him in the street, my heart keeps leaping just to feet. Gonna walk right up to him, give him a great big kiss. Wow! Tell him that I love him, tell him that I care, tell him that I'll always be there.
I was sort of taken aback by them. They were very tough looking. They had hardness about their ways. And they would come in with the black stockings, but the rips up and chewing the gum and carrying on. I'm like, I wasn't really quite used to that. Not that I'm a goody-goody, but I wasn't really quite used to that kind of a scene. I guess the Shangri-Las and the Ronettes, in a different way, were the tough girl groups.
The three of us were determined, especially me. And we were standing outside the Peppermint Lounge, and my mother said, you got to put stuff here and have a cigarette in your hand to look older, to get in even. And we dressed exactly alike. And what happened was the management was waiting for another girl group. We never found out what girl group. We were standing online, the management came outside. He said, girls, you're late, you know? I said, don't say anything, what is he talking about? But I told the girl, don't say a word, don't worry about it. He says, come on, you're late. And they took us in there, and they said, get up on stage, hurry up. We got up there, I think it was a song called, I Know It, What I Say by Ray Charles, because we danced and sang. They hired us that night. They gave us $10 a girl per night. And I thought it was great. I'm still in school. And my mother was a little upset because she said, now, how are you going to get your homework done? I said, don't worry, I'll get my homework.
You know you make me wanna.
Phil always had a mad, wild crush on Ronnie and thought she was like an exceptional-looking girl, which she was, and had a very strange, unique sound. He fell in love with her. I thought he could really make her into this monumental star. And I think a lot of his other acts did suffer because I think everything was geared for Ronnie and the Ronettes.
We met Phil at a place called Mirror Sound in New York on 57th Street. And the first night we walked in, it was just him sitting at the piano, and he looked at me, and I looked at him. It was like eye contact. And he says, well, sing me some songs. That's all I know are like Frankie Lyman and Little Anthony and things like that. He said, well, let me hear it. And I started singing, why do birds sing so gay? And Phil stopped. He said, that's the voice I've been looking for. And then right at that same night, he took us in the studio and played us a song he had just cut with Darlene Love called Today I Met the Boy I'm Gonna Marry.
And we're going to sing the very first record that I had under the name of Darlene Love. gotten into talking about Phil Spector, and she was asking me what kind of person he was, and I said, you don't really want to know him, da da da. She told me then she was going to marry him, and I went, ha ha, you gotta be kidding. She didn't even know him yet.
I think because his feeling for me was so strong at the very beginning, and mine for him, that's when he started writing the love songs. I mean, like, Do I Love You, Be My Baby, Baby I Love You, because I think it was the love he had for me and the love I had for him. That's what showed on the records. The boy I'm going to marry, he's just what I've been waiting for. Oh, yeah. With every kiss, oh, this is it. My heart keeps saying, today I met the boy I'm going to marry. Phil made a mistake, because, he would have, like, his little crazy fits in the studio, and he was yelling or something one day, and he knocked his elbow against a switch. And I was still singing. He said, well, leave it like that. And that's how I started singing in the dark. And I think after that, Phil said, well, I don't want anybody to see it but me. So I wasn't allowed to go with Cher anymore, or Darlene. I wasn't allowed to see the other girls. I was just sort of left with him all the time. So I never got a chance to be in the studio having fun. They would turn off the microphones, and I could see the faces. They were having fun, but I didn't know about what, because I was always sat in the control booth with Phil. And from that day on, it got worse and worse. I mean, I just got more secluded from everything. The Rolling Stones were our opening act in England, and we were on the bus, and they never spoke to us. I said, what's going on? We wondered why these guys weren't speaking to us. So I went over to Andrew Oldham, which was their manager at the time. I said, hey, how come you guys are so cold? Is this supposed to be England? They said, no, honey, Phil Spector sent us a telegram saying, don't talk to you guys. I said, you gotta be kidding. He's crazy. And then we made friends.
He was a difficult person.
Very bright, a brilliant composer, arranger, producer.
He was kind of calculating.
Strange, lovable, frightening.
Playful. He was like Peck's bad boy.
Guarded.
He was erratic, eccentric.
There was also something very vulnerable about him.
He was brash.
Was he frightening? Yes. Was he talented? Yes.
Philly was an artist.
Was he crazy?
He hired Minnesota Fats to teach him how to shoot pool.
He was better at that than karate, I think.
Yeah, I never saw his karate. Should we play?
Go, brother. Let's see you tonight. Ah!
See the way he walks down the street. Watch the way he shuffles his feet. My holds his head up high when he goes walking by. He's my guy. When he holds my hand, I'm so proud. 'Cause he's not just one of the crowd. My baby's always the one who tries things they've never done, and just be that they say.
The beginning of the song had to be exactly the way his melody was. I mean, he didn't want you to deviate from it at all. But by the second verse or the last chorus out, he would kind of just like give me my way and let me sing the way I wanted to sing on the end.
He is always good to me, good to him I try to be, 'cause he's not a rebel, no, no, no. He's not a rebel, no, 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 to me. He's a rebel. If they don't like him that way, they won't like me after today, 'cause I'll be standing right by his side when they say he's a rebel and he'll never be any good. He's a rebel 'cause he never does what he should, just because he doesn't do what everybody else does.
When we did He's a Rebel, Bill made us overdub at different times, and on the end of the record, when he wanted me to match my voice, that I already did some whoas, right? And I was supposed to do that again when I overdubbed, and I couldn't do it. That's why the end of that record has all those no, no, no's in all those different places.
Except for Ronnie, I think Darlene was the Spectre sound. I mean, I think Darlene was, I guess, the most schooled voice he had to work with. The most versatile and the most schooled voice he had to work with. And I just think she was terrific as far as just what she contributed to the background singing, her control, her... I mean, I think she was a typical 60s soulful, street, gospel singer.
Every evening when the sun goes down,
Holy cut.
I lay my head.
Darlene, I wanted to sing gospel music, and probably if I never would have gotten into rock and roll or met Phil Spector, I probably would have geared my career gospel, Marian Anderson. You can just express yourself in so many ways. Singing gospel, it can be soft, it can be sad, it can be uplifting.
I don't have to have oohs behind it, okay? Let's forget about the intro for now. Let's just come right in. 1, 2, 3.
Every evening when the sun goes down, I lay my head on the pillow down. Every evening when the sun goes down, I lay my head on the pillow down. You gonna keep that other part the same?
My voice was on mostly all those lead songs, but from what he did to them, he put the Crystals' names on them, Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, Darlene Love. Nobody knew the difference. It was just a sound, and they listened to it, and nobody was saying, that's Darlene Love doing all that. But see, after He's a Rebel, then we did all the background for the Crystals, the Ronettes, Bobby Sox, and the Blue Jeans, and the same people did Darlene Love's background. So the sound continued to be the same.
He also owned most of the names, so he had the right to make whomever he wanted to be the Crystals, because he had the name. So anybody, any 4 girls, 2 girls, 5 girls, whatever, could be that group.
He would even come in and say, this is going to be your next release, and release it under the name of Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans.
Presenting the Blossom. Well, I once believed all fellas were nice. Girls, listen to me. Take my advice. You better get yourself on the right track. Listen to a good thing, girls, like finding us. Oh, what I say now. Yeah, shoot, what I shoot. Those fellas are fly, slick and shy. Don't you ever let them catch you with starry eyes. You tell them that your love is true. They'll walk right over you. You better get yourself on the right track. You're looking for a good thing, girls, like finding them. Oh, what I say now. Shoot, shoot, what I shoot.
I met the Blossoms the first part of my career, out of high school.
Get yourself on the right track. You're looking for a good thing, girl, like finding a needle. Oh, what I say now. You better look before you leave, yeah. Water sometimes is very deep. You'll be sorry you'll discover you're just his pastime lover. You better get yourself on the right track. You're looking for a good thing, girl, like finding a needle. Oh, what I say now.
Most of the singers that sung those songs didn't really want to sing them because we called them bubblegum songs. The lyrics were really teenage. Well, not even teenage. I say kids, 10 to 12. The market was geared for them.
Well, I know that Phil's favorite composer was Wagner, who, of course, was power and bigness. I mean, a few times when I had gone over, Phil had an office on the main floor of a building, and he had his apartment upstairs, and, very often, he would be upstairs in this one room listening with the speakers blasting, conducting Wagner. It was his idol, and Wagner was power and bigness and heavy and all that, and I think he was going after that in his records.
Everything was done double. I mean, where most people have one guitar or one drummer, we had two of everything. So that's what made it that wall of sound.
I would say a record date we would cut at the time would be maybe $5,000 to $8,000. Maybe if Philly walked in, it would be about 25 grand.
I think he instinctively felt certain things regarding music, and I think he was unafraid to go after them at any cost, be it his reputation, the studio bills, the equipment blowing up. I mean, if he heard something, he went for it. He had an insatiable personality. He just could not get enough onto a record.
As soon as we got married, it was like 2 months after we got married. See, I didn't know anything about that. I wasn't going to record anymore. I wasn't going to do any stage performances. I thought that would continue. I mean, here's the man that owned the record company, wrote all my songs, and produced all my songs. How would I ever think that he was going to, like, just retire 2 months after we got married? We moved into a 23-room mansion, and my first gift was a Rolls Royce for my birthday. And it was like I was taken away from everything because I was brought up around family, people, liveliness. Then all of a sudden I got married. It was like darkness. Phil had to have everything dark in the house. I mean, there was no rock and roll. Everything was classical music played throughout the house. I wasn't allowed to, like, read Cashbox or Record World, or so I was cut off. I was no longer called Ronnie. He called me Veronica, and the servants called me Mr. Spector. So I believe he did that subconsciously, just so I wouldn't be thinking of the Ronettes, that people would call me Ronnie. And that's when he went into a recluse. And so when he went into recluse, I went. You see?
Hey, here's a song I really don't think I'll ever forget. It was the #1 hit when I was a disc jockey here in Hollywood. I played it on the radio so many times, I think I wore out about 10 copies of the record. And I bet you're going to see why when you hear it sung tonight by the girls who made it famous. Veronica Bennett, Estella Bennett, and Nedra Talley. But, of course, they're a whole lot better known to their fans as the Ronettes.
Miss Mary Wilson, Miss Diana Ross, the sensational Supreme